I got 500 in my stack and sit down in a brand new 1-3 game. We decided to start off with a $15 bomb pot, 7 ways. Flop comes 7-5-4 with 2 clubs. Very coordinated board. This check to the middle position player who bets 30. Player on the low jack calls, and I look down at 2 red jacks. Yeah, not a very good situation. If I catch a jack, it might be dirty. Sometimes I would just muck this, but being 7-handed in the very first hand, I decided I'm going to play it cautiously and put it in a call. So with 195 in, we see a turn card of a jack of clubs. That's great for us. We do make top set now. It's bad if we're up against someone with a flush or a straight. The initial better in middle position checks. Player in the low jack decides to bet for $45. Here, it seems like a kind of a weak bet. I can definitely represent a flush in my position. So I decided to make it 45. Maybe put some pressure on someone with a straight draw or maybe even a straight. If he has a flush, I'm sure I'm going to find out about it. But I got a lot of outs if I get called. Middle position player thinks for a long time before deciding on a fold. The player in the low jack kind of peeks at his cards again and then says, "Did you get there, Doug? You make the flush?" And of course, I don't lie to him. I just remain quiet. And he mucks his hand and we win our first pot. Next hand we end up playing, we have 2 queens under the gun, race to 15. It ends up getting called with 4 additional players. So we're going to go 5 ways to this flop with $75 in the pot. Not ideal for 2 queens. Hopefully we can get a good flop, which comes out 9 high, rainbow. I got a couple options here. One is just to fire out and try to protect my overpair with a pretty good sized bet, at least half pot, probably more. The other one is to check to see what happens behind me. I'm out of position and I got 4 opponents. I decided to check it. It might not be the best play. It might be better just to fire out, but it ends up getting checked around. Turn card comes is a jack of hearts. First player checks. I think here I'm going to have to bet. So I go for 2/3 size bet, trying to represent that I have at least a jack. If someone has 8-10, I think they probably would have bet on the flop. So I'm not really worried about that, but it's possible someone might have just a lone jack and be willing to call me down. I do get one caller for the $50, and we're going to end up going heads up to the river. Well, we're looking for a blank on the river, but instead we get the 8 of clubs, which is probably one of the worst cards out there. Puts a one-liner up. I do check, and he checks it back. I'm happy to turn over my 2 queens, and we're good. I was in the force move game, and we were moved over to another table. Don't have the best seat for vlogging. First hand I get to play, there was a $6 straddle, a bunch of limpers. I decided just to limp along with my pair of deuces, see if I can get a cheap flop and flop a set. And that's exactly what happens when the flop comes queen, 10, deuce, rainbow. Very good flop for pocket deuces. First couple players check. There's a player that bets out kind of small for $13. Yeah, I don't think he has very much, so I decided just to call along, maybe get some action from the players behind me. I do get 2 players that check called, so we're going to go see a turn card, which happens to be the biggest blank in the world when it comes 3 of clubs. I guess it's not the biggest blank because it does put up a potential flush draw. Everyone checks, and here I just have to bet, protect my hand a little bit, and I go for $60. Just hoping that somebody has a queen or a 10 is a little bit sticky. 2 of the players end up folding out, and then the original bettor of that $13 on the flop decides to put in a call. So I'm like hoping that he has some sort of queen. I don't think he does, but there's always a hope. Anyway, we get to see a river card, which comes out the beautiful 3 of spades. We have the effective nuts. Our opponent checks to us, trying to think of a size that he might call. Decided to go small for about $65. I don't think he has much. As soon as I start breaking off the chips, he mucks his hand. So we don't make a lot off of it, but we do win another one. Seems like we're getting a lot of pairs today. Here I have a pair of 5s. Put in a call from someone who raised, and we don't hit anything. So can't flop a set every time. Oh, we got another pair, this time pocket queens, and we're in the big blind. Bunch of limpers. I raised to 20 more, and we get one caller from the player across the table from us that's eating right now. He has a very large stack and has been fairly active. Flop comes out King 5-4 rainbow. I go ahead and c-bet small like I would with most of my hands. He takes a break from eating and scoots up to the table, looks at it for a bit, and decides to put in the call. Of course, I'm a little bit worried that he might have a king when he puts in the call. But when the turn card comes as a 3 of hearts, I decided let's put out one more small bet and then we can shut down. He does make another quick call. So he could have picked up some sort of flush draw with that 3 of hearts, maybe something like 5, 6 of hearts. Oh, river card comes as a 5. Not too much I am beating now. I decided I just don't want to get bluffed off this hand, so I put out a little blocker bet for $50. If I get raised, I'm just going to dump it. Well, I get my answer right away. He raises to $250. Could this be a move? Not likely. Let's face it, he has at least a 5 here. Maybe he has even more. Who knows? Well, I ended up mucking the hand. Had a little table talk with the gentleman. He did happen to have the 5 of spades in his hand. So we're in trouble. Man, it feels like the only hands we're playing today are pairs. Here we got a pair of 4s. Put in a raise. Get called. Miss. Look down again. This time, pocket deuces. Someone raises. I call. Bunch of other callers. We see a flop. We missed. All right, finally we look down at a real hand. 2 aces. There's a player to our right that opens for 25. 99.9% of the time, I am just going to go ahead and 3-bet this, get it heads up with him, and see how much money I can get out of him. Every 1 in 1,000 hands, I will just flat with it. This happens to be one of them. The conditions have to be right, being in late position, in position with the initial raiser, and having people that don't look interested behind me. So it looks like everyone in the blinds were going to be folding. The only player I was worried about was the player on the button. He has a very deep stack, and he will sometimes call with looser hands than most people. Well, sure enough, the button player decides that he wants to play this hand, and I'm instantly regretting my decision for not 3-betting. Now I'm going to be out of position with him, and he has a deep stack. Yeah, just raise all your aces. No need to balance 1 in 1,000. Just raise aces. Well, at least the other players are folding out like expected. So we're going to end up going 3 ways to this flop with $85 in the center. Flop comes out King 7-4 rainbow. Very good flop for my hand. As long as my opponent doesn't have kings, I should be in good shape. He leads out for $40. I think the best play here is just a flat. Maybe the player behind me is coming in there with a hand like King Queen or King Jack and is going to be overcalling. The only real drawing hand out there is something like 5-6 suited and would have an open-end straight draw. It is possible that he could have called really light with a hand like 5-6. We're going to go off to a turn card, which comes, oh no, the 3 of hearts. So not only does it complete the 5-6, it also brings in a backdoor flush draw. My opponent to my right checks immediately. I bet $90. I need to get some value from a player with a king and maybe deny equity to someone with a flush draw or a hand, say like 7-6 or something with a gut shot straight draw. The other player folds out and we're going to go heads up to the river card. And the river card is a 7 of hearts. On the turn, I gave my opponent 3 types of hands, a king, a flush draw, or possibly a hand like 7-6, 7-5. 2 of the 3 got there. Yeah, this is the problem with slow playing aces. You just don't know where the fuck you are. Anyway, I decided just to go ahead and check this. He checks it back. I'm feeling a sigh of relief. I turn over my aces. We win the pot. And my opponent kind of ridicules me for not 3-betting.
Just always raise when you have aces. No one's going to think that you need more balance or anything silly like that. If you really want to balance your aces, why don't you fold some pre-flop? Does that make sense? No. Just raise when you have aces and everything will be okay.
Go set mining again, this time with pocket threes. Of course, we missed the flop, but I do put in a call to the continuation bet when the flop looks pretty weak for the opponent's range. We had to fold. All right, this time we got a pair of nines under the gun, open for a raise to 15. End up getting three callers for the 15, so we're going to go off to a flop with a little over $60 in the pot. Flop comes out. Queen, Jack, 8, 2 spades. We do not have a 9 of spades in our hand. No need to continue here against three opponents. It does get checked around, and we see a 10 of spades on the turn. We do make a straight, but it also puts up a possible flush. First player checks. I'm going to take a little stab at this. I got to deny equity to some random spade. It could possibly look like I have an ace king or was slow playing something. They all fold. I'm very happy to win a very small pot. Well, I'm sure there have been other hands besides pairs that I was dealt, but these are the only ones I seem to be playing. I got two jacks in middle position. There is a $7 straddle. I open for 25. End up getting three callers for the 25. So we're going to go four ways to a flop with 104 in the center. Flop comes out. Ace, queen, blank, and with two spades. Not a good flop for a pair of jacks against three opponents, and I do not have the jack of spades. I check it when it comes to me. Player behind ends up betting for $50. More than likely he has an ace or at least a flush draw with a lot of equity. The other player folds, and then the player to my right ends up putting in the call. It's just time to get out of the way. All right, this time I'm on the button, and I got queens. There were a couple of callers, and I raised to $35. Only get called from the player in the big blind. He doesn't have a very deep stack. He has about 200 in front of him. The other players end up folding out. Flop comes out pretty good. It comes out 8-3 deuce rainbow. He checks, and I would continuation bet with most of my hands in this spot, so I would do it with queens also. I put out a bet for $45. My opponent tanks for a while and then decides to put in the check raise, and he shoves all in. Once he shoves all in, I figure, okay, what kind of hands could he have? Well, he could flop a set. That's possible. He could have some other medium-sized pocket pair, which is most likely. Type of hands like, pocket tens down to pocket fours, right? And he's just trying to deny equity to all my ace king, ace queens, king queens, all those big cards that are not paired. And if he's wrong, it's only going to cost him his $200. And if he's planning to call me down anyway, it's probably smart just to get it in now. All that being considered, there's no way I'm going to be folding this. So once I get a count, I make the call for $128 more. Run out comes with a bunch of little cards, an 8 and a 6. He turns over pocket sevens, and we win the final hand of the day. But stay tuned, because here comes the craziest hand you have ever seen. Unfortunately, I didn't get live footage of this hand, but it was from a very wild, very deep 1-3 game. The player I'm up against is basically playing like a maniac and has been drinking quite a bit. He has been running outrageous bluffs, and occasionally when he got looked up, he would show them the goods. But he was showing a lot of bluffs. Anyway, he kind of has been gunning for me, you might say. And I've been very patiently waiting for the right spot, and then this hand occurred. So there are like 4 players in this pot. They all limped in. I'm in the big blind, and I raised to $30. I get called only by the wild drunk player at the end of the table, and the two of us go see a flop that comes 9-8 deuce with 2 diamonds. That's a pretty good flop for a pair of tens, and so I decided to lead for $50, expecting to get called by a wide variety of hands. My opponent looks down at his hand and makes a quick call, As he did, he flashed that he had the nine of clubs. As you know, drunk players aren't very secure with their cards. So as he picked up his cards, he flashed the nine of clubs, which gives me a lot of good information. I know he has at least a pair of nines at this point. So my plan to do on the turn, I figure if any little card comes up or any kind of blank, I was going to check it to him and let him bluff me, because he probably puts me on a hand like ace king or ace queen or something like that. So that's my plan, and let's see what happens on the turn. Well, the turn card comes up is a jack of diamonds. Not a great card for my hand. It does give me a lot of draws if I'm behind. I decide to check it to him. And as expected, he decides to bet. I thought he might bet big, but I didn't think he would bet all in. And he has me covered, and it'll be like a little over $1,000 to call. And I'm going, holy shit, what did I just get myself into? I set the trap, and he jumps right in the trap, and now I'm trying to figure out whether I can actually make a call or not. Well, without any information, I would probably be just folding this hand. My opponent could have a flush. But given that he flashed the nine of clubs in his hand, my opponent cannot possibly have a flush. Well, that means that if he does have a flush draw, that I'm ahead of him now. And if he doesn't have a flush draw, that means my flush draws are good live outs, and probably my straight draws are good live outs too. Let's just face it. It's possible he has a hand like 9-10 of clubs, but then I'll be way ahead and we have the same draw. The only real hand I'm kind of worried about is, say, if he has pocket nines. I only have like 36% equity against pocket nines with all my outs. If he has two pair, like 9-8 or something, then I have about a 50-50 chance. I got 22 outs of the 44 remaining unseen cards. Yeah, I decided to stick it in there just because I'm either way ahead of his bluffing range, or I got a 50-50 flip with the majority of his value range. So I think I have to call, and that's what I do. I stick in $1,000. Not a very good pot odds type of situation, but if I have 50% equity against what he's jamming with, so be it. He does end up having two pair with 9-8, so it's a 50-50 flip, and we're going to end up going to the river card. One time, let it be there. Half the deck gets me the winning hand. River card comes up, and it is a 5 of clubs. Oh, shit. Anyway, my opponent has a wild celebration. If you were within 2 blocks of the casino, I'm sure you could hear it. He did give me the suggestion of getting the fuck out of the casino, which, even though it was solid advice, I wish he could have expressed it in a different manner. I did take his advice and I left immediately. Just remember, there's always another day and always another opportunity to get even. You don't have to stay long and try to grind it all back in one session. I'm not really disappointed with my play with my pocket tens against the drunk player. I figured I was exactly where I thought I was. And even though that it was a little bit of a gamble, I think I was getting the right price. I am upset with myself for slow playing those aces. Should just go ahead and 3-bet pre-flop. It would have saved me a lot of headache, even though I ended up winning the pot and probably won more than I would have if I just raised outright with them. It's still the correct play, and Zeus is never wrong. Let's face it, he's a smart pup. Anyway, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate your support, and we'll see you back here next week. And until then, good luck at the tables.